Everyone, you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsors, which is my own t-shirt right here. It is making fun of Gundam, Taco Bell, and the most interesting man in the world. And you can also purchase my metal cards on my eBay store where I sell a bunch of really cool comics. So obviously go purchase that stuff because I need the money badly. And without further ado, I have with me Comic Creator JD Calderon. So welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me, Andrew. Listen, I've been watching you for a while. I'm like, yeah, how do I get on there? And I got lucky enough to meet you on another show. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't know who's watching me anymore. I don't really care. I'm all over the place on social media, and I'm just doing my own thing. And I find it funny that they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been watching you for a while. I've seen your name around, and that's kind of cool." And we actually spoke before on my other show, and my dog was barking excessively. And that was when she was like maybe 2 years old, and that was way back in the day. And I got to release that interview, and I think your wife was on that as well, which is super cool. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about because you got a Kickstarter going on with the Oswald Chronicles, the adventure of a magical mouse in New York. So before we really get too deep into that, I do want to talk about the basic premise of that for those who are hearing about this for the first time and what I've seen of it and a long history with this stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, okay. So if you want to get the basic rundown on the series, imagine the basic through line of it is what if the greatest sorcerer of our time was reborn in the body of a mouse, and that's Oswald. So he's just a tiny mouse. He awakens one day and he's just like, he starts watching television, and then he starts checking out, like, he starts realizing that he's different from the other mice. He's like, the other mice are just running around doing whatever. And he's watching TV. He's starting to talk. He eventually meets up with a young girl. She befriends him, and she teaches him how to read. She teaches him how to write. She teaches him how to play the piano. She teaches him how to do math and arithmetic. And then and then the other thing he realizes is that he's not alone. They're not other mice that speak. He's the only one, but he realizes there are other little people around, and these are the fairies, and they're like goblins and ghouls and just elves and pixies and all that sort of thing all around him. And what it is he is a nexus point between two worlds. He's the nexus point between the human world and the fae world. We can't see the fae and the fairies and all them because of their glamour, but he can. He can see them. He can interact with them. Whereas he can also interact with the human world. So that's where he's at. And then he's trying to figure out what is it exactly, or why is it he is who he is. So that's his life, and it's just him going through all this madness with all these fairies and elves.
And one of the things that I like about this is that there's a lot of content with Oswald. And just to go through this, and I'm gonna miss some stuff. I think there's like the first volume. And that's sort of him learning and figuring out who he is. And then we have talk about, Clive and traveling through, hinterland dreams and all that stuff that's going on with Clive, and even dealing with Clive and what happens with Clive. And then you got Fallen Gods, and you got My First Day, and you got Passing Queens and Making Homes. And pretty much you're dealing with every type of species, every type of situation. Obviously, Oswald's getting, more powerful per se and figuring out magical abilities and also making choices and growing up. And what is this like? Because now that you have this Kickstarter coming out, you have all the back history. It is a very cool thing when you do have a big library with a character, and then you have the next chapter and the next chapter after that. So what has it been like to build this world? Because I think that's something that people coming into this Kickstarter might not fully understand, is that there is so much content that if you like this story and you jump on, you could go backwards and you could go forwards, and you could have enough content for the next 6 months.
Yeah, maybe more. When I first started the series, it was in prose, and it was about 12 years ago. I hooked up with my artist Jay Gonzalez, and we started working on the comics. But it's one of these things. I'm like, some people would refer to me as a genius, because I started in the middle, okay? And my only advice to anyone is don't be this stupid. Start at the beginning. Okay. I was just smart enough to out, to fool myself. So yeah. So that's why the story is a little, sometimes it's all over the place. But what I started doing a few years ago is I started from the very beginning. So if you see a story called My First Day, it's literally just that. It's his first day. And it's his origin story in 24 pages. And then that rolls into another story called Passing Queens and Making Homes. And that the first trade paperback is actually available on this campaign. So if you wanted to pick that up, it's available to you. And then as we move on, we had the next series come out. That was We Were Just Passing Through, and that was Oswald's first encounter with another race that lives in New York, and they're called Calcians. They primarily live in Central Park. These hamster warrior guys who use a lot of magic, and they this is behind me. Oh no, that's okay. This is from that story. This is from Passing Queens and Making Homes. That's one of the covers I commissioned to have.
That's Fallen Gods.
Yeah, that one's from Fallen Gods. That's from Clive's Tale. Yeah, that's the one we were just passing. Yeah, that's the one. We were just passing through. Yeah, so you have these warrior hamsters, and they're at war with another race because they stole something and that they shouldn't have stolen, but they stole it anyway. But yeah, but all this stuff is.
You can talk about this because if you started in prose and then you went into comics and you have all these stories and obviously everything is stacking up and we're getting different, I guess, introductions to the world and the world's expanding. And it's very cool in a lot of ways because I think that there are always two issues that I have with comics. Sometimes I feel like stories drag on forever and they should end at a certain point. But also the stories that I don't feel from what I've read of yours that it's dragging on because I feel like almost everything is a mini series that then connects and it's just another chapter in this world. And it's very cool because we see a lot of character development as Oswald is going through his first day and then going through passing through and then even making decisions and even building this out and also having that big library. And it's almost like a never ending adventure in a lot of ways. And it's very cool. And I think you are a genius in a lot of ways for doing that because it's also wholesome. Like I feel comfortable that if I had a 7-year-old that I could give them this story and not have to worry. And it sounds messed up and I'm not a parent yet, but it's going to get to a point where I look at a lot of content and I'm like, I don't want to give this to my kid, or my sister's having a baby soon and the baby's not going to be old enough to read, but that kid's going to be 4 or 5 years old. And this is the type of book that I'm going to give to that kid so that my sister doesn't kill me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, like it's funny because like, I've done adult stuff, right? And then, you do enough of it. You're like, okay, I want to switch gears and do something different. Right. And then what's funny is sometimes during the period that I've been writing Oswald, I will stop writing Oswald for a little while and I'll go write something really grimy, to get it out of my system.
You can talk about that because that's kind of interesting where do you ever feel like you're like, oh man, I'm writing a wholesome, really all ages book, but not to say you have dirty thoughts. That's not what I want to say.
I have dirty thoughts. We don't have to even question that.
but even to say, hey, as a writer, I need to just get this idea out of my head so that I can get back centered into my book because especially I would imagine because I haven't produced a comic yet and I've never produced two things at the same time either. And so what is that like to say, oh man, I got to get front and center in my book and be respectful. I can't, drop an F-bomb. I can't show a pair of tits, for lack of a better word, because you want to challenge the integrity of the book.
Well, in the case of Oswald, right, it's funny because he will sometimes encounter a character with florid language, right? He'll encounter them, right? But it's the Oswald Chronicles. Oswald himself, he's a scribe, he's a writer. So you're reading the stories from his perspective. So if someone's cussing, he doesn't include it. He might write, he'll play it off and say, okay, well, something else happened, or he'll. say something else, but that's what it is, because it's done all from his perspective, and he considers himself a gentle mouse, right? So he conducts himself that way. So he's like, okay, we're not going to do that. So
see that's so interesting that it's from his perspective and it's really his vision of what happened, because
right.
that also lends itself to a whole nother side where, technically speaking, and I don't know if you thought about this or you even have the time, but you could tell a different version of what happened with these same characters at some point, and that you could be like, oh well, maybe Oswald has a very biased perspective on what exactly happened. And
Oh
then
yeah.
you can also raise the bar, lower the bar on the adult level of it as well. And so that is actually super fascinating. And I always appreciate stories when I'm telling you what I think happened. One of my favorite movies is The Usual Suspects.
Oh, okay.
That entire movie is from the perspective of Kevin Spacey's character. And you don't know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting. And it's just so much content with Oswald. It's insane.
Yeah. I just finished a story where it's done from another character's perspective of Oswald, right? So Oswald, he's doing something where he's trying to save a bunch of people, right? So he's trying to save, like, he's like the chosen. I hate that fucking term, but he's like the chosen one, right? So but he wasn't really chosen. He wasn't supposed. The task he takes on, he wasn't supposed to do it. That wasn't supposed to be his task. That wasn't supposed to be anybody's task. He just decided, he was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this, because if I don't do this, nobody else is going to do this, and we're all doomed, right? So he's trying to protect from this great evil that's coming, but to do that, right? He has to do certain things, and in certain perspectives. From his perspective, he eliminated an evil god, right? Let's just say. But from the perspective of the worshipers of that god, you just took away all of my protection for me and my family. You understand? He said, but he ate every third child you popped out. Right? He says, but he protected me and he gave me fertile lands, and he did this. You understand? I was able to live my life. My children who survived, they would have able, but now you took that from us, and now we're being invaded because we no longer have a. So it's one of those, is that kind of milieu, So yeah.
That's fascinating, and even to write that, because that also shifts the entire lens of the Oswald Chronicles as well. And what is that like for you? Because now, if we took that story out and somebody says, I don't want to read that story, and I want to have my own interpretation of Oswald, and
Right.
I'm taking it at what he's saying at face value, which it could be read that way or it could be read as his perspective. But then you introduce that book into this, and then you write it and you put it out there. That
Right.
shifts the lens, and it also challenges what you wrote a little bit and the
Right.
perspective, and it adds more depth. And that's kind of a really cool thing. And I think a lot of creators are terrified to do that, because now you're changing the perspective. You're changing how something is supposed to be read and enjoyed. And you're also shifting it. And you're also saying, hey, look, Oswald is a biased character, and you're openly acknowledging it. So what prompted you to want to write this story and even shift that out? Or was that even what you were thinking when you were writing it? Because that is fascinating. I don't know if I could write something like that, or even if I want to.
It's always a challenge, right? Like, so I'm always kind of, as a writer, I try to challenge myself. My philosophy is always, today I have to try to be a better writer than I was yesterday, and tomorrow I have to try to be a better writer than I am today, right? So the only way to do that is to challenge myself, and that's one of the things that I'm doing. A project that I have going on during this project is my 100 artist project, right? So I want to work with 100 different artists on 100 different stories, all featuring Oswald, right? But they're all shorts, 2 pages, 1 page, 8 pages, 10, 12 pages max, but I want to work with 100 different artists, so every now and again I'll commission a different artist. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're all good. This is your show. It's not mine. You're the guest.
No, I had to turn off my power switch. I saw my laptop was like, I saw it dim. I was like, what the hell's going on? So but yeah, it's yeah, you just gotta 100 different artists, 100 different art, just that sort of thing. And that's just to challenge myself to write short stories, right? Because I write these friggin' long epics, right? I write these stories. They're like 120 pages, 140 pages when they're printed, but once in a while you gotta write a 4-pager. You gotta write a 3-pager. You gotta write an 8-pager, you know?
So to even talk about that as well, because one of the things that I used to do is I used to write for my website. And I used to try to challenge myself to write 600 to 800 words in an article. And my rationale, it was twofold. I spent time down in DC. And if you're working for a congressman who's running around like crazy and he has to go into a hearing, well, you got to bullet point your positions, or you got to highlight the whole thing that he could read it while he's waiting his turn to ask that witness a question. And he maybe has 20 to 30 minutes to sort of do it, and you got to spell it out and make sure that like bullet points. And so when I was in this class that was teaching me how to do it, it was the only class that my professor said you could write your essay and this assignment in bullet points. And you got 2 pages though. That's all you have, is you have 2 pages, which is about 1,200 words. And so with my website, I started writing 600 to 800 words, and I have a problem writing long now. Like if you tell me, Andrew, you got to write 40 pages, that's not easy for me. It's very hard, where I'm used to getting fact in there, getting creative, and then actually eliminating words. And so what is that like for you to go from having 120 pages and maybe having a little breathing room in a story to then saying, I got to have a beginning, middle, end. I got 3, 4 pages, maybe I got 8 on a good story for the artist, and even to get your artist to understand that, because that's a whole different skill set. And I mean, I've seen a comic book that it was a 1-pager and it had a middle, beginning, end, and it was really perfect. So what is that like for you though, really, to write short? Because I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. Unless I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Feel free to challenge me.
No, it's challenging. That's why a lot of people they'll tell you should start off writing short stories and one-shots before you take on the bigger projects, the bigger stories. Because sometimes it's easier to write the bigger story, believe it or not, because you have that breathing space to tell everything you want, Whereas if you do a short, it has to be short, it has to be compact. If you can get that story in those 2 or 3 pages or 4 or 5 pages or whatever it is, I mean, man, it can sometimes be rough, but you got to sit there. You just got to figure it out. You just got to hammer it. I just recently wrote a short story for a buddy of mine, for an anthology that he's putting together. And I was like, I wrote it, and the way I work is I work half Marvel, half DC. So I provide all of the descriptions. I provide facial, what the way the faces I want, descriptions and scenes, all that jazz, and I write all the dialogue. But I don't break it down by page. I don't say page 1, panel 1, that sort of thing. I let the artist decide that, just to give them a little bit of freedom on their own, so they can decide, how they want to do it. The story was 4.5 pages. Normally for me, like when I work with Daphne, I work with Jade, I work with my other artists, it's 2 comic pages to 1 of my written pages. So I was like, 9 pages, 10 if you stretch it, And he said his artist wanted to do 20 pages. And I was like, what? Because the script was a little dense. And I think that's from, like, I guess growing up from the 80s. If you look at a comic page from the 80s, you tend to have a lot of panels. So it tends to be a little bit more dense. So that's the way I write. So I have to start sometimes rethinking these things, because I wrote a script for my wife, Daphne, who I've been working with forever. And I intended it to be 8 pages. And she did it as 16 pages,
So to even talk about that, and sorry for interrupting, but what is that like? Because comics are very collaborative. Unless you are the artist and the writer and you're the colorist and the letterer, I think comics are the only profession where if you write a novel, you have massive creative control over what you're writing, because you're the whole show. Now, you may not control the marketing once it's done, but the actual creation process of a novel is you're almost solely, and it's really the cost of your internet and your electricity and whatever word processing software you use. That's the cost of doing a novel. Whether that's research or writing or just sitting down and doing it. With a comic book, if you're not an artist, you have to hand it off, or you're not a writer, you have to hand it off to an artist. And then most writers will give their artists parameters. What is that like for you to say, hey, look, I'm not an artist. I'm going to let you do your job. You know, it's kind of like when I commission a piece and a sketch cover, and I have a very, very famous sketch cover that Elias Chasutis did. I said, do your thing. I'm not one to tell you. I gave him an idea of what I wanted of a cover he did, and then I said, do your thing, because you're not going to fuck it up. If I tell you what to do, you're going to fuck it up. I said, I want Ben Colton in Firefighter Sexy Samantha. That's a very general thing. If he drew her with F cups or D cups, that was his call.
Yep.
So I'm curious what that is like for you to give your artists that much freedom, because every artist is gonna have a different interpretation.
Yeah. I've generally had very good results. Now here's the funny thing. I've said this before, is like I never exactly get what I want, right? And that's the truth. I don't, right? But I typically get back something that I'm very happy with, and sometimes I'm just elated with because it's better than what I imagined. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's just you just work with people, you just see what they can do. I'm working with one artist, and he comes from a manga background, right? So he's decompressing my stories, and I'm like, dude, too much compress, no decompress, make it tighter. So it's just kind of funny working with that guy. But the thing is, I want to let him express himself the way he wants to express himself. So it's just very interesting. Yeah, you know, like I said, Daphne, she my working relationship with my wife is kind of funny, where she does Tall Tales, where we have we have an omnibus, there's 20 issues in that sucker, 560 pages worth of work. And we have another 5 issues on the second arc. And what I do is I write the scripts, I take them, I hand them to her, and I walk away. My job is done. I don't see them again until they're lettered. You know, and she letters them, and I walk away. I'm like, okay. Then I take them and I'll go in and I'll refine some of the dialogue and whatever. But that's at that point, it's done.
That is fascinating, and eventually I'm single, and I can't wait to have a girlfriend and a spouse, and I'm gonna make her be good at social media so she can handle all my social media. And hey, I understand. You know, I understand how to be economical here. You know.
Oh yeah.
That's a terrible statement what I just said, and I'm gonna get so much flack for it. And I got no problem admitting to all that. I'm sorry. I'm trying to save my company money. But that is fascinating, because I don't know if I wrote a comic, like how my relationship would be if like my wife was the artist. I'd be like all over her. Like I'd be like, I just couldn't walk away. Like,
well, fortunately, see, here's the thing. I started a long time ago. I started young, so I've learned to walk away. You know, especially I did a tenure in the 90s where I worked professionally for other people. So I was writing some adult comics. I wrote something called Tenchi Muyu, which was based off of an anime.
I know that show. I'm like an anime geek. My company's name is Pop Anime Comics.
Oh, like, so there you go. So if you've ever, I don't know if you ever encountered the comics. I did a 6-issue limited series for P Anime, illustrated by Matt Lunsford. And I wrote that series. I also wrote, like I said, did some adult stuff. I wrote something called Ixer 3. I did 1 issue of that came out. Phantom Quest Corps. And like I said, then there was some other stuff. But with that stuff, I had to write it, hand it off, and just walk away. You know what I mean? I couldn't be on top because it's not mine. I was like, I got paid for it. Okay, here's your check, buddy. Go about your business. You know. So yeah, that's when I think I actually learned to walk away, and not just be all over the artist.
See, that's interesting, and I'm actually curious your opinion on this. Where people, when you work for DC, Marvel, and even possibly if you work for Image, if somebody is hiring you as the artist or the writer, you know, and you're a work for hire, essentially, you don't own that position now. I don't think somebody's like, hey, thanks for your script. Now get the fuck out of here. I think it's a little bit more civil because
Yeah.
clearly you don't want to be an asshole to your writer, especially if they're doing a great job. And I got another 5 issues to produce for you, you
Right.
know. But at the same time, what is that like? Because you own Oswald, you and Daphne own Tall Tales. I think it is right.
Yeah.
I think you own that. So, you know, and I'm sure Daphne owns some stuff, or it's more hers, and you own some stuff that's more yours.
Yeah.
But what is that like knowing when you're a work for hire? Because a lot of people in indies, I think, say, I would love to work for Marvel. I would love to have a book at Marvel or be an editor at Marvel, but I don't think they understand the full extent of what work for hire looks like and what those companies look like. And there's nothing wrong if you say, look, I want to
No.
write Batman. Because if somebody approaches you and says, hey, JD, do you want to write Batman? The answer is yes. The
Right.
answer is no. The answer is yes. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not a money thing, it's a money thing, it's a clout thing. It's also, it increases who you are, and then people start to know who the hell you are. And who doesn't want to write Batman? At least for one issue. Everybody wants to write Batman or Iron Man, even if you only get one issue. But what was that experience like for you? Because I think a lot of people right now in the indie comic realm, it's hard going on about it, don't know what it is means to be a work for hire.
It's funny because okay, let me see if I could I'll preface this with a little bit of a story. So I was in Disney World with a group of friends. One of them was the artist, Matt Lunsford, right? So he comes to me and he says, he's like, listen, man, I got an opportunity to write, to draw, to illustrate some adult comics, right? So I'm like, what? You're gonna do adult comics, you know, triple X stuff. And I was just like, what? Come on, man. Don't even bring that noise to me. Just go. I love you, but stop it. But he took the job. He started illustrating it. 2 issues in, when they were about to hit the 3rd issue, they wanted a brand new story. So they wanted, because for the first 2 issues, it illustrated directly from the anime that they were selling. And from issue 3 to issue 12, because it's a 12-issue limited series, they wanted a brand new story. So my friend comes to me and he says, bro, they need a writer. They want a writer. And I was just like, throw my name in the hat. Because at the time I was like 25, 26. And I was like, you know, I could either flip a burger or I could write porn. And I was just like, man, I'm writing porn. So I went in there, they interviewed me and they were like, okay, you guys got a good chemistry. And I just started writing. Like they handed me all these videotapes and I just watched whatever. And I just created this story around it. And it's not too dissimilar to my mentality now. It was a challenge. You know what I mean? It was like the gauntlet was thrown down. I picked it up and I said, bro, we're gonna do this. You know, and that's what it was. I was just like, let's do this. So that's always how I view it. I'm like, I have no interest in writing Batman, to be honest with you. But if they approach me and said, do you want to write Batman? I'm like, yes, because it's a challenge, you know, and I would bust my ass to do the best Batman story I could do for them. But, you know, I don't know if I'd want to do it for an extended period of time, but, you know, who knows, you know. But yeah,
That's so interesting because I've said this before, and I've been very honest that I want 6 issues on Teen Titans West. That's all I want.
right.
Legitimately, I want to bring back Teen Titans West, and I want to have a field day. And whether it's, I want to do it in Black Label DC. I don't want to play in the nice realm of DC. I don't care if it's canon, and I already have the idea for it. I'm gonna have a blast, you know, because I think it'll be just a fun book to do. And I love the Teen Titans, and I love Teen Titans West more than anything else. I grew up. I'm a huge Teen Titans fan. My first comic book, which was a graphic novel, was the Teen Titans. I love everything about them, and it's a personal goal. It has nothing to do with money. I don't give a damn about making money in comic books because I will make more money selling comic books than I will in writing them by nature. And so, but I want to do it because it's personal, and I want the clout. And I also want to say, look, I wrote something that people said, man, this is great. And I almost want people to come up to me at combat, dude, that was awesome. Like, so that's how I view things. And, I don't really want to write Batman personally, but I want to write Teen Titans West. So that's how I feel. And I don't really, I would do it for free. Legitimately, if DC came up and said, Andrew, you want to bring back Teen Titans West? I'll do it for free. If they pay for the art, I'll do it for free. So
nice.
That's how I feel at the very least.
What's funny is like, if I was given my druthers and they said, go write whatever Marvel, I have the two characters I've always mentioned is Captain Marvel and Riri Williams. Those are the two characters that I actually like to write. Because I think I could do something interesting with them, and just maybe make it more fun, because the one thing I hear from a lot of people, I hear a lot of negativity towards those two guys. I don't know why, and I'm just like, they're just characters, man. You can do whatever you want with them, and you can make them fun, and that would be that's actually what I would do, because to kind of paraphrase Neil Adams, it's not the character, it's what you do with the character, right? I mean, you take a character like Swamp Thing, right? The big muck monster, right? From the swamps, and you hand it over to somebody like Alan Moore, and look what he does, man. If you've ever read those Alan Moore Swamp Thing comics, woof,
I agree. I mean, I love Miles Morales. I think he's a great character, and I also think that there's all these variant covers of him, and he's with Gwen, or more like Into the Spider-Verse, and they're drinking like a Slurpee together, hanging out on a building. And I'm like, man, that's just fun. Like, this is cool. And I love Into the Spider-Verse. I think Into the Spider-Verse is brilliant. And I think what they've done with those characters was amazing. And I think that, they're characters. And this is my criticism of a lot of people in comics, is that if you don't like what they did with the character, then why don't you apply to Marvel and see if you can write that character and pitch them a better idea and sway them on the pitch. And maybe that's the problem, is that if I come in and I'm saying, hey, Oswald sucks, and here's why, you're going to be less receptive to that solution. But I say, hey, I think you can, age him by 6 months, jump up a little bit, and then I give you all these praise, and then I make a suggestion, you're going to be more receptive. Now, I'm not going to go recommend anything, because I actually think it's a pretty good book right now. But I think the point is that I think a lot of people also don't get that. And I also think that, look, Marvel and DC, comic books are very much a in the black intellectual property development thing right now. If you look at AT&T, which owns DC Comics, and Disney, they own Marvel. One of the things that's going on in comics is that those comic divisions are profitable, and all the movie stuff and all the animated stuff and all the merchandising stuff is developed out of the comics. So why would they stop making comics? And if you got an idea, why don't you pitch it to them, and they might actually do it, because guess what? There might be real money in it. There might be billions of dollars in it. So
that's right, because they'll take whatever you do, and producers and directors, they'll mine it, for the best ideas. They'll pull it out, construct their own stories, which is what we've seen in the Marvel movies. We've seen various bits and pieces from, like, what is it, the Infinity Gauntlet, the Kree Skrull War, all these different crazy stories. And they've like taken little bits and pieces from all over the place. And they're like, okay, let's do this.
I mean, look at Guardians. Guardians is a great example. Who would have thought Guardians would have ever worked? Guardians is actually the best thing in Marvel that Marvel has produced ever. And then people, you feel free to disagree with me about No Way Home and all the Spider-Man, but I think Guardians 1 is Marvel's best thing they've ever produced.
Yeah. What cracks me up about Guardians, have you ever heard of a show called Farscape?
I do know that show, because Michael D. Pascal's done covers for that. With Boom. I do know Farscape.
Now, that show, the director, I'm blanking on his name. He's a huge fan of that show. Okay, Now, when you see what is it, Star-Lord, he's basically aping John Crichton from that show. Okay, he has like 1-for-1 like figures pulled from Farscape. So like Star-Lord is John Crichton. Now the funny thing about John Crichton is the actor who played John Crichton, he was in the second Star-Lord movie. He was the general in gold. But he, if you watch the show long enough, you can tell he's aping Bill Shatner from Star Trek. Okay, so it's really funny to see it because one is aping the other, and the other one is aping the other one. You know, like Gamora is another character in that series in Farscape. There's like 1-for-1 reference. It's kind of funny, but Farscape, if you ever get a chance to watch it, excellent show. Love it. You know, it was done by the Jim Henson Company. I love the puppets. They're puppets and all kinds of crazy stories. But it was a fantastic story.
Yeah, no. I don't know where I've never seen it. I just know the covers and I just know things from like comic who've done work on it. And I'm like, oh snap, because Michael D. Pascal does a lot of work for Zenescope and a lot of other companies. And I was like, oh snap, he's done a bunch of Farscape covers, and it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And you know, because we spoke about those covers when I had him on, it was a blast. So yeah, no, I really should watch Farscape. I really should. You know, it's on my list. I got like a 50 long page list of things that I need to say.
No, trust me, I know how that feels.
That's because unfortunately, like all the good stuff, like all the good cartoons were in the 80s. And I was born in 93. So,
gotcha.
hey, you know what it is? I got attacked on a show because apparently me and my guest, and it was a panel, I said, you know, as a 90s baby, I had the Spice Girls.
Nice. Hey, listen, they were beautiful women. That's all I have to say.
Hey, it's good, and their music still holds up. I'm sorry. They weren't around for all that long, and their music is phenomenal. And that's all I'm gonna say. You know, and they're like, I listen to heavy metal. I'm like, you're all jealous because you know the Spice Girls would beat all your bands at the end of the day. But
nice.
And then the interview ended, obviously, after that statement, but it's all right.
That's funny. Listen, it's funny. All right, so I was 10 when Star Wars first came out, right, in 77, right? Because I'm old. Right. So and then what is it? The prequels came out in the 90s, right?
Prequels came out, I think, in like 2002, 2000, 2001, 2002. They started.
I think so. I don't even remember. Okay, but now let me ask you a question. How do you feel about those movies?
So, I think Episode 1 was great.
Right. Exactly. See.
So let me explain my logic.
No. Go ahead.
I'm a political science major.
Mm-hmm.
So Episode 1 sets up the entire political crisis that's about to ensue.
Right.
And the power grab and all the problems, and you know, it's great. And that's kind of what happened. And then it also sort of goes into why the Jedi are sort of wrong, and there's all this philosophical stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Episode 2 was okay. And then Episode 3 was just, I enjoy Episode 3. I don't like Episode 2. Mm-hmm. Episode 2 to me was just like a letdown.
Okay, fair enough.
But I like the prequels. I mean, 4, 5, and 6 are amazing. And we all know 5 is better than 6. 5 is the best out of the bunch.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because 6 was good. 4 is amazing.
Right.
As always, but 5 is better than 4. And then 7, 8, 9 make abortion look good.
Correct. Yes, I agree. So now here's my perspective, right? So those first 3 movies, for people from my generation, right, who saw it in the theaters for the first time in 77, so the number 4, right, a lot of us will say those movies are trash, right? We've said it for a long time. Those movies are terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I keep trying to explain to people. I saw a person from my generation arguing with a younger person. They're like, that movie was terrible, blah, blah, blah. And the other person was like, no, that movie was great. It's nostalgia. You understand? Nostalgia clouds the eyes. Thundar the Barbarian, Space Ghost, the Herculoids, My Tour. These things in my mind are fantastic. But if I were to show it to someone who's new to it, they were like, that stuff looks really crude and odd, right? And it's my nostalgia that brings it up a level, right? And those first three movies, I love them. But I watched them. I can watch those three movies in high speed in about 90 minutes, all three movies. And that works very well for me. And I think that's how I watch those movies, and I watch it very well. I just skip through a lot of the stuff that I don't like.
I don't know. I could watch episode 4, 5, and 6 all day. In fact, I might even do that tomorrow now. Like,
yeah. Oh no, I'm talking about 1, 2, and 3.
I can watch 1, 2, and 3 also. I mean, I'll put 2 and I'll fast forward through 2. But
right.
I enjoy episode 1, and I enjoy episode 3 tremendously. Okay. But my issue with 3 is that 3 had Grievous, right?
Yeah.
And General Grievous's history is amazing. And that guy needs his own movie. If you go through how he was a slave and how he's in pain and how his entire family got slaughtered and his motivations and even how he thinks, I mean, oh my God, what a great character. And they did it wrong. He should have been in the middle of 2. They should have killed Dooku off like in the first 20 minutes of 2, because Dooku didn't do anything useful. Except the only cool thing about Dooku is his lightsaber style. And that's it. And then you have Grievous for legitly 1 and like 80% of the movie. And oh my God, it would have been great. And how Grievous dies was okay, but like that guy's history is so rich.
What is it? Number 3, that opening sequence where you see what is it, Obi and Anakin flying through that starship battle, I think is perhaps the best starship battle I've ever seen filmed anywhere.
That was taken right out of Star Trek.
You think so?
Or that was a Star Trek opening. That was not a Star Wars opening, but it was epic. It was awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for me I can watch that opening, was it 10-15 minutes over and over again. You know, it's like the first 10 or 15 minutes of Bumblebee, right? However you feel about that movie, that first 10 or 15 minutes of Bumblebee, I could watch over and over again. You know, because it has all the classic, of Transformers.
Oh my God! Just stop. This is so bad at so many levels. I enjoyed Bumblebee. I really did too. I didn't say it was a good movie. I just enjoyed it.
Right.
I enjoyed Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one. I'm going to go see and get completely fucked up in the movie theater and see Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And one of my friends is going to be a designated driver. So before anybody asks, and then me and my other friend are getting pocket shots. And we're legitimately going to get hammered at like 7 o'clock watching Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And it's going to be great.
Nice. I haven't seen the first one, so I can't even tell you.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. But I'm probably not going to remember the second one because I'm going to get hammered in a movie theater. But I'm not paying for alcohol, and it's probably committing a felony. So, luckily the movie theater doesn't watch my show. So,
yeah, they're not going to be there hawking you over. I mean, but it's the thing about nostalgia that I was telling you about. That's why that first 10 or 15 minutes of Bumblebee is fantastic for me, because my nostalgia is Transformers from the 80s. You know, so my nostalgia reads that. I'm like, this is incredible, right? So
I love the Transformers from the 80s. That's good shit. Like, I bought the Transformers movie where Optimus dies in the first like 5 minutes, and like, oh my God, I had a teacher in high school who compared Transformers to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay. That's an odd comparison, but okay.
No. His argument was that McMurphy, I don't know how familiar you are with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but McMurphy wears a black hat.
Mm.
And Nurse Ratched wears a white hat. But is Nurse Ratched the good guy?
Right.
Or is McMurphy the bad guy? Megatron's colors are purple and white. Optimus Prime's colors are blue and red. So you have to ask the question, is that, well, white usually is a heroic color. So why is Megatron white and wearing white? And comparing it, and then like you went through all these comparisons, and we had like a whole week talking about the Transformers in the novel. Oh my god! And like you have me, and like the class, like, okay, this is kind of interesting. We get the point. I'm like, yes, yes.
That's hilarious. I'm sure your teacher was waiting months. He's, I'm gonna hit them with this shit.
he won a car from Burger King that was the Camaro. Like the Transformers insignia that was Bumblebee.
Nice. That's funny.
He was a great teacher. And you could tell that he thoroughly enjoyed teaching seniors more so than like 10th graders. Like and also we had a lot more fun as seniors in like his class. So great professor.
That's awesome.
I do want to get out of back to your Kickstarter.
Okay, cool.
Clearly, we took a big detour there, but an important detour.
That's what we're here for, right? We can't just, comics are fantastic. I mean, but there's other stuff going on, so I got to talk about it.
Oh, I mean, I speak about whatever. I realized a long time ago that this show is going straight downhill. After Jim Noble came on, this show went straight downhill. We started off really high up, and then we just went all the way down. And it's not Jim Noble's fault, but after I showed pretty much all of his covers on his Kickstarter, I knew the rest of the season was going to go one direction and only one direction. And I'm happy it's going in the direction it's going in.
Nice.
But obviously, you got a new story with your Kickstarter.
Yes.
And it broke free and couldn't read, or it can't read. Forget the whole title.
Oh, no, it couldn't read.
It couldn't read, and obviously, basically, Oswald finds a gnome named Dauphin on his doorsteps, who is like half-dead warrior, battling an ancient evil, and now, well, Oswald's in the fight as well with Dauphin, and really interesting, and now they're dealing with how to take out this beast, and they got to take out a giant spider, and so where did all this come about? And this is just another addition to the story and really building out the next challenge for Oswald.
Yeah, kind of, just him going through his life, because originally Oswald wasn't supposed to be the center of attention. Originally, Oswald was supposed to be kind of like my crypt keeper. He was supposed to tell these stories, right? But it just ended up becoming about him at some point. It was just like, okay, so it just became about him.
I'll throw a name out there. I don't know if it's gonna ring. Do you know the name Simone?
Simone
from Shining Force?
No, I don't. I can't say I do.
Shining Force came out in maybe like 1999, and it's game, and she's sort of telling the story of the Shining Force, and again, sort of like the Crypt Keeper and all that. So, but continue.
Right. Yeah, so he was supposed to be the crypt keeper, and I had all these crazy stories in my head, and I was like, okay, but it came to a point where it's just the stories about him. So, but he encounters a lot of people, and one of the things as a scribe, he likes to listen to their stories. So he's like, he'll sometimes fight somebody, stop, and be like, listen, I'm gonna whip your ass, but I'm gonna give you the opportunity to tell me why I'm whipping your ass. Okay. So he's that type of guy. He's like, we're going to do this, but I want to hear what you have to say first, right? Before we do this, I want to get to know you just a little bit before I beat you down. So that's how Oswald is. He wants to know. He's very curious. And, and Dauphin is one of these characters that recurs in the series. He's a good friend of his. He's a warrior, and he travels all around, fighting evil, basically. And amongst his own community, he's considered very bizarre. He's a bit ostracized, but he's considered a madman. He's considered mad by his own people. No other gnomes are like, yo, what are you doing, bro? You're supposed to be like gardening and shit, and you're out there fighting monsters.
So what is that like, really, to sort of create a non-traditional gnome character who is sort of ostracized by his community, and he's fighting monsters, and he's not, protecting the garden, and because it's kind of nice to have characters that aren't stereotypical characters.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always a thing of like, just trying to do something a little different, a little weird. Like his story is very tragic. He's set on the path because his story starts in World War II, and he's in Germany, and he sees all the madness, and all the fairies are like seeing all this madness is going on. They're like, the people are killing themselves. They don't understand it. They can't conceptualize what's going on, right? But they do know war is going on, but they, like us, they're greedy. So they're looking, and they're like stealing coins. And Dauphin finds a German soldier hiding a case, right? And in that case was teeth, right? So these are the teeth that they were pulling out that have gold caps, right? These were the teeth that they were taking from the prisoners. And this German soldier was hiding it. And Dauphin breaks into that thing, and he steals all these teeth. And he brings it to his wife. His wife is creeped out. He's like, "What is this? This is very, this is not a good thing, right?" And then he would pull off the gold, and he'd be like, "Look, we can melt this down, and we have money for the family, blah, blah, whatever." And he finds one particular tooth, and it has all these runes on it. It has all these magical runes. They don't know what it is. And he tries to open it, and it doesn't open. But the seal is breached, and some unknown evil is seeped out. And through that one act, right, of him trying to help his family and help his community, right, he destroys his family, right, and he's set on this course of trying to correct that. So that's what this story is about. So.
That's very intense.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're writing an all ages book?
Well, it's funny because it's funny. Like I've never. Here's the way I look at it. I don't necessarily say it's an all ages book. I say if they could watch Lord of the Rings, the movies, good to go. That's how I view it. There's no foul language. There's some gore, but nothing excessive. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So, but if they're good to watch Lord of the Rings, they're good for this.
Because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with this character, and a lot of symbolism as well. And that's something that I think is fascinating too, is that there's a lot of symbolism with him, and the idea of no good deed goes unpunished.
Right.
No good act goes unpunished. No, even being greedy is bad, even if you're trying to protect your family. And also the idea of sacrifice and knowing when to stop and knowing when you need to suffer and all that stuff. And you can probably break the fun down in so many different ways. And it's fascinating when you have characters like that. Or you can just read that he made a mistake and he unleashed a massive ancient evil. And you can read it on the surface level. And I really appreciate when comic writers and comic creators do that, where they allow the reader, because comics give me a lot of power as a reader to determine how far I want to dive into a character, where I could read this on what I just said the first round. I could say, hey, he made a bad call, and now he wants to get justice and solve his bad call. And, well, this is just his story on how he deals with that and deals with his bad call. So fascinating in that realm. And I don't want to ruin too much about what happens.
Yeah, no. And he carries around this giant sword, right? And the sword was made for him. And it's a whole another story that he goes through. And this happens before. And maybe one day I'll sit down and write it, but it's the sword was made by an ancient dwarven smith for him, and Dauphin admits he had to do something horrible for that smith to be able to get this weapon, you know. And he was just like, you know, his morality is challenged. You understand? And the question is there is it more important to get the thing to help you get your revenge, right? Or is it, you know, or should he not have done it and never get his revenge, right? You know, he lost children, he lost his wife. You understand? It's like, you know, that passion, that drive is there, but he was forced to do something that he considered morally reprehensible, right? So, you know, yeah, it's weird. But this is the milieu I like to work in. You know, this is the sort of thing that I enjoy. It's just like, you know, just go in there and make it messy.
Yeah, because it gets really interesting, and obviously there's a lot to play with, and you also don't have to play with all of this at once either. And that's the other thing, is that you're going to be doing this for the next 10 years minimum.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's something that I also think is very cool, where you're at the stage, at least in this one, and even with Tall Tales, that you now need to plant seeds so that you can tell another story. And both Oswald and Tall Tales lends themselves to that, where you don't have to tell such a linear story, either one of these things. And I think that's something that a lot of creators can actually take out, where some stories and some positions allow you to say, hey, if I'm just telling the next chapter, while chapter A or passing through happens before this chapter per se, I don't have to tell the next Stefan story immediately after this
one. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
it does pop up.
A lot of freedom, I think, is in play there.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you're saying something?
Yeah. What's funny is I just finished what I'm pretty sure, other than the 100 Artist Project, I'm pretty sure I just finished last night what'll be my last main Oswald story. I mean, I'll probably just write a few others in the middle of his adventures just for fun. But I finished what I think is the last story last night. So
let's even talk about that before we really get into rewards, because that's the business I love business. But what is that like to say, hey, you know, I'm writing the last main Oswald story that's going to be the ending to this, and then maybe I'll write a one shot here, or I'll write a few more adventure stories to sort of fill in some blanks, or just as an aside. But what is that like to put your creation, I don't want to say down, but say I have now come to the ending point of something, because that is a complicated entity, I think. And I was speaking to somebody already before you, and we were talking about this, because he just ended Chunk of War on issue 5. And I don't know what that looks like, because I've never ended a project. I put projects on hiatus, but what is that like to say, hey, I've had a good run, I've written, you know, 25 issues, 30 issues, 50 issues, and now it's time to put it to bed.
it felt good, you know. It felt good because it's like, well, first of all, I'm nowhere near done, because, all right, let me show you something. I'm gonna pull this out. This I have to transcribe all of these. These are handwritten. These are handwritten stories. I write them on the subway, coming to and from work. Right. So that's where I get a lot of my writing time in. So I still have to transcribe all these. But this is, well, there's one book missing. It's upstairs. But this is pretty much the final stories in the series. You know. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And yeah, I mean, Larry, I've not been ignoring you. You are awesome. And yes, Andrew's awesome too. What is it? But yeah, man, it felt good, because what it is now that I'm done with this, I still have a lot of work to do. I'm probably going to be working on this for another 15 years, but it allows me space to do more work. to do other work, because I've been wanting to like do other things, work with other people, because I wrote a one shot for one friend for his series, and I wrote a short recently, and now I'm writing another series for another friend. So it's good to start branching out again, because I haven't done that in years. I've just been focusing on Oswald, I've been focusing on Tall Tales, but I haven't really focused on like doing other things, and it's good just to stretch those muscles and just do something different.
Yeah, no, this is so interesting because again, I haven't been in that situation, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be in that situation where I'm going to be doing this show or some form of this show for the rest of my life. And I know it. I know it. I'm probably going to bring back my other show too at some point, and I love it. And I love it because no interview is the same. And I think I'm going to be like on my deathbed, please let me interview somebody. Like,
Nice.
you see me in a hospital, like dying, and I'd be like, "Give me my headset." And people can be like, and you're gonna see like me slowly fading away with the beef slowly dying down, like on air, and like, what the fuck's the matter with this guy? That's how it's gonna go in my life. But yeah, no, that's kind of interesting because I guess at a certain point, if you're working on a project, and I'm curious how you feel, do you feel that if you're working on Oswald, you have readers and you have people who want to hear the story, and that's the only thing you can focus on because you have to deliver to your readers? Or do you feel, because I know creators who have 3 or 4 or 5 projects all going on at the same time, and they alternate, or maybe it's not 5 projects, but it's 2 or 3, and so in the first quarter of a year they work on project A, in the second quarter they work on project B, and they fund it on Kickstarter. And in the third quarter, they work on Project C, and then they come back to Project A. And that's good and bad because it does give their readers time to wait for the next story, but it also keeps them 9 months out or 11 months out from each story. And so I'm curious how you feel about that, because I think that's a very interesting thing, whether you're focused or you sort of keep your brain active with 2 or 3 different stories at the same time.
See, Oswald was so involved that I had to just focus on that. So it's one of those types of situations. But getting to the point of spacing, right? When I was having the discussion with some, I guess, gurus of Kickstarter or whatever, they had advised. They said, because I had asked, it says, how close or how many Kickstarters should I do in a year? And they were just like, well, do as many as you want, because the thing is we're comic book fans. We're kind of like programmed to picking up the series every month, right? So if you collect anything from Marvel or DC, you're going to go back every month and get that book. It's not much different. In Kickstarter, people want that content, and the faster you can get it out, as long as the quality is maintained, they'll continue to support it, and that's what, it bears out, that's what's been happening. So thankfully, people are still backing.
So to even talk about that, because, and I am curious because I've been having this discussion now, and again, we're diving into business, is that one of the things that I have an issue with Kickstarter at this point is that, and even with comics in general, is that they have become very expensive very quickly. And one of the things is that manga is very cheap. All things considering, I could go to Barnes and Noble, pick up a nicely bound book of manga for 10, $11, get 200 pages, and it's readily accessible. It's there, and pardon me, I'm a little bit sick, everybody, so bear with me. But one of the things is that I know that it's cheap, it's accessible, and I don't have to wait forever. Manga's weekly, and so how do you feel? Because that's my biggest pet peeve with Kickstarter, is that I know books that are $15 for just cover A, and that sort of prices me out when DC and Marvel are $5 or $6, and if you're coming at me every month at $15 a book, I'm going to be drained out quickly. So I'm curious how you deal with that, because I think you are going as cheap as you possibly can on your Kickstarter for 2 books for $20, which I don't think is outrageous. And I think you're going as cheap as possible, but it does get a point where I get burned and drained.
Oh no, of course. See, here's the funny thing about it is that, like, because here's the difference with Marvel and DC. They have, fortunately for them, they have the deep pockets to finance whatever they need to finance. I'm an independent publisher, and I pay my creators, I pay my artists, and this is how I'm doing it. So I really, honestly, is like, it's a passion project for me that I'm.
Oh, it's not a criticism. I'm not criticizing.
Oh yeah, no.
It's not.
Yeah, it's just for me, it's like I get it, but the way I'm doing it is I just have to move forward. And then the thing is what I see is I'll have certain fans. I might not see them for 2 or 3 Kickstarters, for 2 or 3 campaigns, but they'll come, like they'll be the fourth one, and they're like, okay, look, I need all this other stuff from those prior campaigns. I've gotten emails, and they're like, JD, I need this, I need this, I need this, and I need this one and this one. It's not on your current campaign, but this is what I need. Do you have it? And I'll be like, yes, add this much to your pledge, and I'll make sure it gets to you. And that's what happens. I had that happen quite a bit.
I'll give you a crazy situation. So I want to buy a book from Canada, and Canada shipping is a bitch.
Yeah.
And Sister Mercy is the campaign. I love Corey's work with Sister Mercy, but I don't want to pay, right, $25 or $30 to get it into me. I would almost rather say to Corey, like, I want all 8 issues of your book, but is there a way that we could work that out with whatever covers I want and then get them shipped to me all at the end? So I save myself $30 or I save myself $240. Right. And that's the whole thing, is that, that's the other thing too, is that, and that even with other people's Kickstarters too, it's like, if you're running a Kickstarter every single month, I would much rather you combine shipping on me, because if you save me $15 on shipping, I'm going to put it right back into your book.
Yeah, I have, we have some, Daphne and I, because we're running, we sometimes run concurrent Kickstarters. So she has a campaign going, I got a campaign going. So what we'll sometimes do is, if we see that we had one guy out of Europe, and we basically said, okay, don't pledge to that campaign. He's going to pledge to it, but he's like, don't pledge to it. Just send us a PayPal, and we'll make sure the book goes into the other campaign you pledged for. So then you don't have to pay the shipping for it. And we'll do stuff like that for some guys. So it just depends. It just depends on the relationship. But yeah, it gets expensive, especially when you're shipping to Europe, Australia. I sent stuff to New Zealand. I mean, the shipping to New Zealand was as much as the pledge to the campaign,
Yeah,
So,
no, it's crazy. And I really haven't backed Sister Mercy because it's like I can't afford the shipping on top of the book. And it's not worth me getting 3 books, spending $45 and then having $25 shipping. That's really pricey for me. And it drains my wallet. And look, I'm back, and I love Corey's work. I'll buy it digitally. I'm not going to get a physical copy. I would love a physical copy, and it's a problem. And I don't know what the answer is for that, but clearly that's a problem. But even going further into the business, one of the things that you do that I love is that you have limitations on some of your books, and that you have a limited print run. And I don't know the whole thing, but some of my favorite words are called investor relations.
Okay.
And let me explain what I mean by this. I find that when somebody says, I'm only printing 500 copies of a book on this Kickstarter, you're protecting me when I buy that book on your Kickstarter. Because now it is a hard limit. You're not going back to reprint it, at least not for first printing, or the second printing might be slightly different, and there's value protection. And now I don't know if it's the regular covers, and I have some pictures, so you're gonna hopefully correct my pictures that I can throw up here. I think the regular cover is on the left side, I would like to say, and then the alternative cover is on the right side, and then same thing right here as well. But I don't know. I don't know if the regular covers are 500 and the alternative covers are 500, or if it's 250, 250. I'm not exactly sure, but
No, it's 250 and 250. And then we hand number them, we sign them, and we keep track of them. Because they're PODs, so meaning it's print on demand. But I keep track of the numbers to make sure nothing gets doubled up. And the way I look at it is like this: is one, I'm not going to reprint them in this format ever again. Once they're done, you may see them in color, you may see them as a graphic novel, you may see it as a digest, you may see it as in multiple different other versions, but you're not going to see it in this version ever again. You know, you may see it with a new cover, you know, but you're not going to see it, you know, like this. So that's one of the things. I've been doing that from the beginning. I just always thought it was just something fun to do, you know.
But I also think it adds value, and this is the whole thing. When I'm backing a Kickstarter, and this is my logic, and maybe I'm the odd one out here. So I got no problem spending $20, $25, $30 on a variant.
Right.
I don't have a problem. I have a problem when somebody says, if 1,000 people are going to order this book on my Kickstarter, I'm going to print 1,000 of them. I like when a book is exclusively numbered.
Right.
That because that helps my eBay business. And one of the reasons why I do well with Zenescope books is that it's a 250 print run.
Like that's how we set it up. So we'll literally write in 1, 2, whatever /250. You know.
And so my whole theory here, I'm not muted, thank God. I got scared there for a second. My whole thing is that I want that protection because I feel that, and this might sound egotistical, but I'm backing your project. I want you as a comic creator to say, I get that there's a market and there's a resale market, and that at some point people unload their collections. And I can make money on the back end. You know, all of a sudden I go to a comic shop, you know, somebody might be like, oh, this book is only limited to 250 and it's signed and has a handwritten number. I'll give you an extra $3 for the book when I unload my collection in 20 years.
Right.
Or it's also the idea that, as you stated, it's fun, and it also says you're putting effort into it. And I feel like, you know, you're not going to print 1,000 copies and go back to print as long as it's selling with this thing in particular. And so I just want to feel protected for supporting your project. And so I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I feel.
Like I said, I did it for fun. You know, I was just like, oh, I think this is cool, and it's, you know, we'll do limited edition runs because in the end, Daphne and I, like, let's say something like Tall Tales, we've printed and reprinted it over and over again over the years. That particular series, that's like open-ended, but we've done so many different versions. What's funny is you had asked me if I was oh no, there was somebody else that asked me if I was a fan of ElfQuest and Wendy Pini, right? And the one thing I admire about them, aside from the quality of the work, because the quality of the work is incredible, but one of the things I really admire from them is that they have kept that property alive for like 40 years. It has gone through many, many different reprintings, different iterations, all kinds of stuff. And as a creator, that's important to keep the project alive by reprinting and reprinting and reprinting. So sometimes you have to rethink, how am I going to reformat it? How am I going to make it a little different? Am I do a hardcover? You know, am I going to combine the books? You know, however you got to do it. You know, and I think that's important. You know, because ElfQuest has been around for a long time. Oh, you can find those books.
Long time, man.
Exactly. And I mean, and I can, like I said, I respect the hell out of that. I respect the hell out of that game. Because that's a game on, like, you know, you're just like, oh, okay, we're not going away from no matter what, you know. So
it's kind of funny how long it's been around. But no. I mean, my whole thing is that I just want to be protected. Where if I'm supporting your project, and if I know there's 250 copies of this book, also I feel like I'm in a club, right? And that's the other thing too, is that if I know, and obviously, I think Larry is still watching. And, you know, if I know Larry has a book and I have the book, and Larry has number 139, I have 147, I know that there's only 250 people who have this book. And I know that I'm not going to go find those 250 people, but I know that it's extremely exclusive. And I think that's the thing. And I love exclusivity. Exclusivity to me is what makes me feel special. It piques my interest. And, well, it also protects my money, where you're not, I don't view it as a cash grab, for lack of a better word. And I think that's something that is very, very important. And also, from a business standpoint, I need to justify my expenditures. And I think that's the other thing too, is that if I know there's only 250 copies of a book, it's a lot easier in my head to say, well, this is exclusive. And there you go. So that's how I feel. But then you do some other cool stuff as well, where you got the virgins of that in this. And so we got virgin covers. And I think that there's also, I don't know how many of those there are.
Those, it's funny. I never set a number on those, but they're usually half of what I'm printing on the regular books. But I don't, those I sign them, but I don't number them. But there's much less of them around. I know that for a fact. And then, it's a little weird how to work that one out.
Yeah, there's probably even less of these.
Oh yeah, those, I'm really looking forward to those, because that's going to be printed on a silver foil. So that's just going to really, really pop on that. I stole that from Daphne.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, she was just doing it on her books, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to steal that one.
So what is that like too? Because at this stage in the game, obviously people say print is dead. I personally think that I'm part of digitalization pivot 2.0, but that doesn't mean I'm interested in digital comics. I love digital comics, and I have a Comixology subscription, and I like to read comics digitally because it's easier for me in a lot of ways. Also, it preserves my position, and my nice, beautiful book. If I'm spending $40, $50, $70 for a comic book, I'm not reading that bad boy.
Right.
Nothing against the comic, but if you're charging me $100 or $75 for a book and you don't give me a PDF, you're moronic. I will personally request a PDF before I back your project if that's the case. I'm going to give fair warning to everybody. Fair warning to everybody. But the idea is that because people say print is dead, and I feel like print is just entering its infancy. I feel where I feel that foils and virgin covers, and also having leather covers. I mean, there's all these Lady Death books that are leather covers or
metal prints,
foils, or certain components of the book can be foiled out, or even just having like a trade dressing foil, or having gloss, or having thicker paper. What is that like to say, hey, I'm going to give more of this, upper echelon, cool book that somebody takes out and be like, ooh, la la type of, vibe to it.
Yeah. You know what it is? As a fan, I enjoy it. Because that's one of the things. A lot of people decry, I guess, the 90s, because there was so much of that, right? There was like all the metal foil and chromium and all that stuff. Man, I would have killed to do a chromium cover back in the day. I would have killed. But those things are super expensive to produce. I mean, they're just expensive. It's not something I would do now, but unless I had the numbers, of course. But yeah, they're super. But I just like the look of it, because back in the day when I was my original company, Golden Realm Unlimited, we had Dream Weavers, Tall Tales, and Reaver, and all three of those books came with a 10-point card stock cover with foil, embossed stuff. We had gold foil books, we had red foil, blue foil, all kinds of stuff. So we did that, and we had fun with it. And we did it because it was just something enjoyable to do.
Yeah, I also think that it makes a book stand out. I mean, I'll be very honest. If a book has a foil on it, I like to look at it. I've been through dollar bins with books that have foil. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm buying this." I don't know what's in the book. I don't really care, but it's $1, $2. Like, I'm sort of in, and that's how I feel in a lot of ways. And obviously, I'm a sucker for foils too. I have a Generation X foil. Scott Lobdell, and I love that book, and I just think it's fun, and it's like all foily and all stuff. I have Top Cow stuff that's all foily, so it's fun. It catches the eye, and so it's fun to sort of just whip it out with somebody that's into comics. Like, oh, that's a cool one.
Exo Man of War #1. I think it has a Joe Quesada cover on it where there's chromium, right? You know, the book is okay, but that cover is incredible. You know, you see that chromium, you're like, oh, that's nice. Yeah.
I mean, I have an Action 1000 foil, and that thing's cool looking, and it's graded, and it's signed by a bunch of people. Came back as a 9.8, and it's just fun to whip out, and people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it looks nice, you know. I like stuff like that, and you know that's just. Yeah, I think it's fun. I think that's the idea, where it goes back to the idea that comics are supposed to be fun as well. Yeah. And I think, you know, people are like, oh, that's a really cool foil cover, and that's something that's interesting. And so that's something that's really cool in that realm. And then even just diving into some rewards here. Obviously, you got the big indie sample taste. So if you don't know anything about what JD does, you know, this is for you to get your beak. I guess your beak wet. I think it's what, like $1?
It's $1. 2 PDFs, 2 books.
So obviously you could check that out, and then just the digital, so 1 and 2, which is pretty affordable, and then you get the digitals of It Broke Free and Couldn't Read issues 1 and 2, and Passing Queens 1 through 8. And then I think you get a package. You get all of Oswald's PDFs pretty much, or the majority of it.
Like the ultimate PDF level, $40.
And so that'll
at least 600 pages worth of comics and about another 600 pages worth of pro stories. So there's a lot of stuff in there.
And then there's a bunch of other stuff as well, where there's obviously the physical copies of issues 1 and 2 of the Jade covers. There's also Virgin covers. There's the foil covers. And then there's a deal that I think you can get just the Virgin covers with the regular covers, or you could probably get all of everything together if you really want. And then you do something that I actually have never seen, where if you get the physical books, then you get pretty much everything above it, which is in PDF form. So you get like the Passing Queens PDF and a variety of some other stuff. So that's kind of a sweetheart deal in a lot of ways. So what's up with that? Because I haven't seen that, and that's extremely generous, I feel.
Well, it's you know, PDFs. They're just, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like,
no, this is the whole point, though, is that I know people who won't give a goddamn PDF of their book, and I know people who won't give a PDF of like 3 of their books before, even though they're offering a PDF, and they're like, well, I don't want to give my PDF of 15 other books that I did, and I'm like, why don't you want to give somebody a PDF of your other work too? Like, I don't get it. Like, if I wrote a book and I crowdfunded a book on comic book investing, and then I was doing a sequel to the book, why wouldn't I want to give somebody as a goal, living up to every other reward prior to that position, the PDF book? To me, it just seems like it's logical. Like, I don't get it, because I know people won't do that. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's why I'm asking the question, because it's just mind-boggling.
For me, it's one of those things where I want people to read the stuff. You know, I want people to read the books. You know, that's my whole goal, is like, I create the stuff for myself, but I want to share it out. And the thing is this is the beginning. You know, I have a lot more content. I have someone helping me with have me help with my Kickstarters, and they were just like, you should only do 1 book, not 2 books, right? Because they were like, because, you know, you're costing yourself money. Like, if you broke it up, you can make more money. And I was like, that's true. But if I did that, I would be doing Kickstarters to 2092, and I won't be here for them, right? Because
talk about that, because this is one of the things that I think is starting to happen, is that I know a lot of creators who have to do double features at this point. They have way too much content, and they're now either running as a company, which means they have other people's books that are run through their Kickstarters, or it's the idea that you do issues 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 and then 7 and 8, not because, in money wise, but because of speed wise. Because it's the idea that if you're getting 2 books out and then you're running a campaign every quarter, well, you just got 8 books out instead of, 4 books out. And so you double your output. And also the books can carry themselves. And so if 7 is a very action-packed book and 8 is not, well, people are going to get both books. And so now that's the other thing too, is that they carry themselves as perceived value. And so you seem to be on such a tight schedule that it would be impossible for you to do it not as a double feature.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. It's just one of these things. Look, this campaign is 30 days. My next campaign is probably going to be 18. Because it's just a lot of stuff. I did 8 campaigns last year. I might do 8 more this year. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. I'm going to be probably running another one in November. And January kicked my ass, like in a lot of ways. But I think if I run one again, I'm going to know more what I'm doing. And I think my goal is to double what I did, which I think is doable. And I'm actually going to start marketing in June. I'm actually going to write the Kickstarter in May. I'm going to start marketing in June. And so there's going to be all this content that when I hit in November, it's going to be like 900 interviews, me talking about my campaign. Like, and people are going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm be like, well, the goal is to do X amount of money on my campaign as a podcaster. And I'm going to take a whole different approach. And then as soon as November hits, in December, I'm going to write for season 5 of this show and start marketing again in December. The day after my campaign ends, I'm going to start marketing and doing the tour, which is going to be sick. I'm going to be like the most interviewed person ever.
That is nuts. No, that's going to be awesome, though, because it's funny. Like, I do a lot of things that I'm advised not to do, right? Like, they always tell me, oh, you should do a 30-day pre-launch, whatever page, get signups. And I'm like, why? I mean, I get it, but I'm like, but why? Why not just run a 60-day campaign at that point? Because I'm out there campaigning to get you to sign up, right? And here's the bad thing. Indiegogo, if you sign up with their pre-launch, you get the email and the person who signed up. They don't give you that with.
Oh my God! Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, right? So this is like my jam. This is the biggest problem with Kickstarter. So here's the problem. You all know what Kickstarter is. It's a funnel. So basically, a funnel's this, guys. You want to bring somebody down. What are the 2 biggest problems with Kickstarter? You mentioned one of them, where you don't get the email up front. And why that's a problem, and I'm going to spell it out, is if you have the person's email up front, you then control their traffic. When you get somebody's email, you own that traffic. You don't own Facebook traffic. You don't own Instagram's traffic. You don't own Twitter's traffic or any other TikTok. You don't own the traffic. But if you have an email, you own that traffic. So now, what's the other problem with Kickstarter? I'm curious if you know it.
Probably, I would think it would be pledging. Is that the money's collected afterwards instead of at the moment?
That's part of the problem. That's actually a third problem, actually, now that I think about it. Because if you have the money during the campaign, you can do other things with it. And any time, it's kind of like with my sponsors, they paid me up front, which gave me a lot more maneuverability. It also is more responsibility. What I find to be the other problem is that when I have a funnel and I'm planning to build on ClickFunnels, I want to build an upstream funnel or a downstream funnel. So the way ClickFunnels operates is that free comic. Give me your email, I get you a free comic, right? Then I have your email. You can exit out of the funnel at that point. The funnel accomplished what its first mission was, but then it brings you to another page saying, do you want to buy cover A and B for $20? They say, I'm not interested. Then you can build the funnel that it brings you to each pledge step by step by step by step by step and bring you down so you can upsell. What Kickstarter does, and this is a whole complicated entity, and it actually hurts people's monetary wallets because it actually takes away upselling. And BackerKit is a mediocre upsell. So what winds up happening is that if you bring somebody down in ClickFunnels 15 levels, you're upselling them, and every time they reject it, you can bring them back to another upsell. And you could bring somebody all the way down so that at the very end, if they wanted a $5 thing, they got to go through all the fucking pledges. They don't have a choice to do it the other way. Right. With Kickstarter, you have 15 exits at your disposal, and then you get the back for kit. So you pick $45 pledge, but you got to scroll through and look at it. And that's the problem with Kickstarter, because if you have a downstream pledge or an upstream, which is you could on Kickstarter, you could be like, hey, I got 4 books, and then you could have, you want to have a one-on-one discussion with me learning about comics, I click the box for $50 extra, and that's an upsell or a downsell, which is an added thing, and that's a whole different ballgame. I'm planning to build a whole comic book investing class, and when I basically build out my funnel, I'm gonna have that where that's my upsell, you know, my and then I'm gonna have all these other things going on. Or do you want to join my private group? And so that's the big problem with, and it's called Funnelytics. And I mean, it's a lot more complicated, and people can disagree with me, but the advantage of Kickstarter and Indiegogo is that they have traffic. That's the other advantage. But if you understand traffic rules, you know, I mean, ClickFunnels might be an answer. And the difference is that if you build the funnel correctly in ClickFunnels, you could crowdfund all fucking day. You could have a constant crowdfunding going. And then you get their email, which means you control their traffic. And so you can modify your funnel any which way you want. I know I'm probably getting comments where people disagree with what I just said. I got to figure it out.
I mean, for me, because the thing about getting the email is like, because then the thing is I can reward a pledge afterwards. So like I could say, listen, anybody who signs up and pledges, I'm going to give you a free trading card, or I'm going to add a trading card that's exclusive to you, to that. Nobody else is going to get it, just the people who sign up and pledge, right? So it's not part of the what is that, add-on, not the add-on, the stretch goals. It's not part of that scheme, right? So it's an extra thing there. So you sign up, boom, pledge, you get a trading card, or it could be a print, it could be anything.
Because one of the problems is that once you have an email, you have a lot of control over traffic. And what we've seen this, I think this year already, Facebook was down for 18 hours. I don't know how many emails you got from marketers. I got 50 from all these marketing gurus, basically saying this is crisis level 0, right? The threat level midnight, right? You know, and so I got all these people really redefining, saying, well, you need to diversify, you need to control your emails. And I got all these emails from all these gurus, from Grant Cardone and a variety of other people saying, here's how you grow your email list. And all of them capitalized. I got like 50 of them within an hour. And again, ClickFunnels solves that issue in a lot of ways, and people have no idea how valuable that is. So that's my biggest complaint with Kickstarter, is that it's not even, I don't think the money for me is not the issue of having the money up front. It's that email. Because if I have your email and you give me your email and you grant me your email, well, I could do a lot of stuff with that. And not even illegal stuff, just stuff that where I can remind you, say, hey, I got this thing going on, or I'm running a contest, right? And so that's the whole thing. And so this is, I mean, Funnelytics is very, very complicated. But if you look at ClickFunnels and you actually go through their website and read their books, and you understand that entire idea, it does work, and it's very effective. And if you know what you're, I mean, I guarantee you, if Brian Polito was doing ClickFunnels, he might do better than on Kickstarter, which is crazy.
Right.
Especially if you do it the right upsales way. And easy. And also, you're not having to pay Kickstarter fees. You're paying a 3% strike fee. That's the other thing too. So, but I digress. That's a lot of inside baseball for a lot of people.
But that's good information to know, though. I mean, I never knew about ClickFunneling or any of that stuff. So that's something I'm going to look into.
ClickFunnels is in probably the next year going to be like a $1 billion company, which is crazy. They've been around for maybe like 15 years, and they're going to be a $1 billion company. I mean, they got big endorsements from people like Dean Graciosos and Dan Kennedy and Tony Robbins. And it's not a joke of a company. I mean, if you go through and look through who works for them, and everybody, anytime you go on a site that has a funnel and says, hey, give me your email, I'll give you a free guide, that's most likely ClickFunnels. And everybody's used the ClickFunnel, and nobody understands that they're using ClickFunnels. And it's an amazing company. But I digress, because there's some other stuff too. You got some prose books as well. You have the sketch covers that you'll do a sketch for somebody, and then you add another sketch tier, actually.
Yeah, I had sold out, and I figured I'll add a few more, and then someone backed out, so it's back up there. But we'll see what happens.
And then there's the ultimate level, which is basically, I don't even know what the hell that is, but it's a lot of books.
Yeah, it's a lot of books. It's basically pretty much all the printed books that I've done up to date. So, yeah, that's a lot of books. It's a $300 and something level. What's funny is 3 or 4, probably 2 or 3 campaigns ago, I had stopped doing that level because I had it for a while. I'd sold several, but people just stopped buying them. Right. So I was like, oh, all right. So let me retire it. And then somebody had got in touch with me. They were like, hey, you used to have this level where you had all these, you did all the books. I was like, yeah. Okay. So do you want it? They were like, sure. I was like, okay. I said, this one person wants it. I said, should I just do one? I said, nah, let me do 3. Right. I said, we'll open up 3 times. Boom. All 3 of them sold out. So I was like, okay. I was like, all right, there you go. Then I did it on the next one. I sold a couple there. I sold a couple the next one. I'm like, okay, I sold one on this one. Hopefully I'll sell another one. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So oh yeah, please.
Well, no, but just when I ship them out, it's literally like a pack of like books like that high. So, and I throw in a lot of extra tchotchkes.
Yeah, well, you gotta love the tchotchkes, What is a Kickstarter without all the tchotchkes and all the extras and all the fun stuff? But I do want to back out of the rewards, and there's something that's not on this Kickstarter that you want. I'm sure JD can hook you up, and is more than happy to figure something out. But I do want to talk about something else that's outside of your Kickstarter, and they're going into controversial territory, so you can answer and talk about as much about it as you want. The Indiegogo that's going on with 9 books. Obviously, Luke Stone's book is in there, and you and Luke are the only people I actually know out of that campaign. But it looks good. It's pretty affordable. And what is the basic story for everybody who doesn't know what happened?
All right. Very basic, very stripped down.
Be as controversial as you would like.
Okay, well,
you can do whatever you want. I don't care. At this point, so as controversial as you want.
No, here's the funny thing. I'm not one for drama. I don't really care for it. So basically, the stripped down version of it is this: we got into a bad business deal, right? It didn't work out, but myself, a few other publishers got together. We ended up printing these 9 books. We gang printed them, so we got a decent rate on them, and now we have 3,000 of each, and we want to share these out with the fans. So we have, I can actually show them. All right, cool. We'll start with this one. So that's The Well Keeper. This is by D. Fish. She's a fantastic artist. Tall Tales, right? And this is, Or So I Thought. This is illustrated by Daphne Lage and written by myself. Shield of the Interceptor by JD Rosario from Unstoppable Comics. Imagine if Excalibur had an equivalent shield, and that's the shield that this gentleman wields, and he is the Interceptor. So, Only Death Can Save Us by Russ Leach. Basically, it's just that something's going on, and only death can save us. So he's coming out, and Russ Leach, fantastic artist. We have Revolt, which is basically an anthology by Randy Zimmerman. It has a bunch of different stories. Actually, has a 3-page Oswald story in there, so that's kind of cool. And we have God's Hand by Anthony Figueroa and Mark DeGazy. Great book. If you like supernatural thrillers, action, adventure, that sort of thing, you'll enjoy this. Hero Bot Zero, about a 3-foot tall kaiju fighting robot. This is very, very kid friendly. He only works. He wants time. He only works when he's getting time and a half, and he works. It's for hazard pay. So that's the only time he's working. So you got to pay him time and a half. If he's gonna fight the kaijus, you got to take him out. He's got to get paid. The Hybrids, Son of Gods. This is Luke's book. Awesome book. Fantastic stuff, man. This is another great book. And the Oswald Chronicles. And this is one of the things where I was saying is this book has already been released through Kickstarter in black and white, 250, limited to 250. And when I say, it'll be released in another version, this is pretty much it. This is in color, So this is the first time I printed this story in color. So it's pretty much, it's 9 books. It's $25 for the 9 books plus shipping. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's 9 great books, very diverse line. And that's one of the things we shot for when we were putting the line together. We didn't want like 10 superhero books, or 9 superhero books. We just wanted, we wanted, a nice diverse line. So you have science fiction, you have fantasy, you have superheroes, you have all that stuff. So, yeah. So you get all that for $25, $10 shipping.
And I'm just going to add something, and I don't really care who pisses off. One of the things is that obviously it was a very bad business deal, and we're not going to hash out. And if you know what happened, you know what happened. It's not that hard to figure out the whole story. I think it's pretty out there. And a little research, and I mean like type in like 5 words about this, and it'll pop up.
I covered it heavily on my last Sunday show. So if you go to my channel, you go to JD Calderon, and you look last Sunday, you'll pretty much that first hour that covers this.
And so it's pretty, extensive, but it's also the idea that, sometimes bad deals happen. Sometimes people who are good people get fucked over, for lack of a better word. And obviously this is sort of a path to recovery or lessen the sting. And that's another reason why to back this, because things happen, and these are good books. This is not a charity case, but it's also making a bad situation better. And that's a reason why, where if you're one of those people that says, hey, look, I'm on the fence and I don't know where to put things. And I understand Indiegogo scares people a little bit. But this is one of those circumstances where you might want to get over your fear and realize that, hey, you're going to get 9 books for a pretty good deal. And you're also making a shitty situation a lot better. So I really encourage people to, not play politics with Kickstarter versus Indiegogo on this one. And adult is all I'm going to say. And if you don't like that statement, that's fine. But I'm calling it like I'm going to call it. So keep that in mind, everybody, with it.
Now, here's the funny thing about it. Like I've heard that argument before between Indiegogo and Kickstarter, right? And it's funny because they're just platforms. You know what I mean? It's like, do you prefer Twitter? Do you prefer Facebook? Do you prefer, I don't know, a Honda as opposed to a Ford? I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a platform that you're going to use. It's not like, do you prefer shopping at Walmart.com or Amazon.com? It's pretty much, a lot of the stuff is the same. It's just a platform.
Yeah. I think some people just don't really So I think that some people just don't want to politicize everything and want to fight, and some people don't know how to say, hey, platform doesn't work for me. That's cool, and that's their problem, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, what is you just miss out on great books, because there's a lot of people who won't use Kickstarter, right? So it's just like you just miss out on great books. And that's the sad part about it. But, listen, things are happening. Things are in the works. So, these are some really good books. I think you really enjoy them. So go get them. And like I said, the Oswald Chronicles is on Kickstarter. So if you want, go check that out. It's on Kickstarter. And look, I've successfully backed 24 campaigns. This will be the 25th one, and I tend to turn them over fairly quickly, within a month or 2. So you're not going to be waiting 6 months. You're not going to be waiting 9 months. You're not going to be waiting a year. I will not launch another campaign until the last box is shipped. So if I want to launch my next campaign, I got to ship all those books. And I want to launch my next campaign. So that's going to happen.
So let's even talk about that, and then I'm going to give you a chance to self-promote. But I'm actually very curious because you know this, and I know this, and I'm about to air out some Kickstarter dirty laundry. I know people who are running campaigns right now who have a book that hasn't been shipped to me that I backed. And my understanding of Kickstarter is that you can't launch a Kickstarter until all those things in your backer kit are fulfilled.
Right.
Which means that technically a fraud is being committed.
Yeah.
So I don't really get that. Where I think it definitely doesn't sit well with me. Where I'm waiting on a book, and I understand that sometimes a book takes a year to produce. But if that's your situation, then why are you doing a book that you need a year to produce and then doing 4 other campaigns in that meanwhile? That to me doesn't make sense because I'm not launching another Kickstarter until all my rewards on mine are fulfilled, and I have only 38 backers. And I understand that somebody needs an interview in June. Well, I'm not launching a campaign for Pop Anime Comics and Conversations in Pop Culture until everybody is fulfilled, or at least everybody is reasonably fulfilled. Where somebody hasn't gotten back to me in a year, I think that's okay per se, and then I'll just refund them their money and we're done. But I don't know how you feel about that because that seems unethical, both on Kickstarter's rules and even just building your audience. Because don't you want to get them your books quickly, and don't you not want to launch a campaign and then say, oh yeah, I got 4 books that need to come out to people, but here's my new Kickstarter. Back it. I have a rule where I won't back somebody's Kickstarter if I'm waiting on your book.
Oh yeah, I have the same rule. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, people, if you're putting stuff out, if you're running campaigns, you should fulfill and then launch another one if you're ready, or even if you know there's going to be a delay, just be transparent about it. Just let your fans know. Say, look, I had this happen, this happened, this happened. I have people that I know in the industry who are professionals who put out a Kickstarter, and 5 years later that book is yet to come out, and I'm just like, you hear this happened, X happened, Y happened, X happened. It says you waste $45,000. You should be able to get this book out. You know what I mean? I know you have other professional work that you're taking on, but you should be able to get this book out. This book should have been out 2 or 3 years ago. I don't understand how is it that you said you're going to put out this story. You put out the first book. I'm waiting on the second book. I'm like, look, I'm going to give any professional creator the same advice I'd give any indie creator. You do 1 page a week. You do 7 days in a week. You can take 5 of those days to do your professional work. Take 1 weekend day and do your 1 private little project, right? And in a year, you have 52 pages. In 2 years, you'll probably have the project done, right? So when I talk to indie creators about hiring artists, sometimes they can't afford the best artists, or it's like maybe you can only afford 1 page a week, right? So talk to them, negotiate with them, and see if they'll take on a project 1 page a week. Sometimes they appreciate that steady money to do that 1 page while they're doing all of their other stuff, and sometimes they'll have a dry spell for 2 or 3 days. They don't have nothing to do, so they'll work on your page, and they know that money's steady at least. And in that way, they can work on all their other stuff. So that's the one thing I always tell a lot of artists is like, in a year, you end up 52 pages. That's 2 comics. You get the covers, and you move on. So
yeah, I don't think there's any excuse. I mean, I'll just talk about me. I mean, I write all my interviews and I write all my questions. I interview usually on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and occasionally Thursdays. I write on my Fridays at night. I write on my Saturday mornings, my Saturday afternoon. I write on my Sunday afternoon, and then I write on Monday night. Meanwhile, I'm doing all my social media. I'm booking every guest, And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm working anywhere from 15 to 20 hours on this project a week, plus the interview.
Right.
And if I can find 24 hours to 26 hours in my week, who the
Mm-hmm.
like? How do you not find time to do it?
Right.
It goes back to you don't give a fuck about it. You don't want to put the effort in. And I'm going to go further. I run my eBay business. I run my investment side where I'm managing my money, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for a job. And I'm spending like 25 hours a week looking for work now. So when we look at my free time, oh, and by the way, I watch like an hour of anime every night too.
Right.
So, or I'm playing Resident Evil 4 again for like the
Mm-hmm.
night time. It's relaxing. Or I'm playing Halo with Larry sometimes.
Right.
The point is that if I can find time when I am going ballistic, I don't see how you can't write your script or do your art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I'm the same
So
way, man. I tell
I
everybody, put in an hour. As far as it comes down to creation, like as writers, as I say, put an hour in it every day. You put in 1 hour every day steadily. You'll end up with massive amount of work at the end of the year. You'll be surprised.
I have a slight different approach where I say put in an hour 6 days a
Mm-hmm.
week, and on the seventh day get hammered because your brain needs to relax.
Gotcha.
I'm serious about that. Where what I
Mm-hmm.
used to do, and this is just my philosophy, is I will, because I'm actually going to cut out Thursdays probably in May or June, just to
Mm-hmm.
ease out because I'm way ahead of schedule, and I know the first 6 months of the year are very important, and then I ease out the
Right.
rest to get to like 180. But I take Thursdays off and I just detox because if
Mm-hmm.
you don't let your brain relax, what I find, and maybe it's just me, or whether it's Friday or Saturday, take a day off because your brain needs to function and it needs to relax and it needs to do something for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I still think even if you don't write on your Friday night and you have 2, 3 beers and watch a movie, you're gonna come back and be like, man, I'm ready to jump back in on Saturday. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I function. But hey, maybe you should write every day. What do I know?
Yeah, for me, that's just how it's funny because a lot of old school novelists, that's what I would get from them. For them, it was 1,000 words a day. So they were like every day write down 1,000 words. For me, it's an hour. So whether I get 1,000 words or 2,000 words or 500 words, it doesn't matter. I'm doing an hour.
I mean, I
Maybe,
can tell you that it used to take me about 3 days to write an interview. Now
mhm.
it takes me 3 hours.
Right. Exactly.
So, but also I have a formula and our research skills have increased. And that's the other thing too, is that I would
Mhm.
imagine, and if you work and you're writing a comic strip for an hour, your first several hours are going to be rough. And your first
Mhm.
script or your first month of that's going to suck. But then it's going to get significantly easier, I would imagine.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh shit, I wrote 10 pages in an hour.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I tell everybody, it's like, that first draft, do whatever you want to do. Then put in whatever you want to put in, but understand that when you move to your second draft, when you start your edits, you're gonna cut a lot of the extraneous stuff out. You know, so that first draft is for you. That second draft is the real deal, though. You got to go in there and really, really edit. So
I agree, and then I need to get back as a writer, and I need to work on my project. But I might create a professional wrestling promotion first.
nice. Uh, that'd be cool.
I'll tell you about it off air because
Mm-hmm.
you'll appreciate what I'm going to be doing. But I digress. I do want to give you a chance for self promotion because it's been almost 2 hours, and this is how my show goes. I'm like Joe Rogan's Law Horror.
Gotcha.
Um, But where can people find you? Where can people back the Indiegogo? Where can people back the Kickstarter? Where can people just give you money? Because we all need money. Where can
Mm-hmm.
people follow you on social media? Where can people check out your podcast, which we didn't get to talk about, which hopefully I'll be on at some point.
Yes.
I'm sure everybody hates me about that ClickFunnels. There's plenty of disagreement in that. In the YouTube comments, for watching on podcast, I apologize. You can't see it, but people disagree with the philosophy that
Mm.
I spouted out, which is fine. I'm more than happy to
Yeah.
have a debate on that topic. It'll be civil. We'll be very gentlemanly to each
Yes.
other.
Yes.
But I not you and me, but me and Larry. But Larry's our friend, so it's all right.
Yeah. No. So if you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook under JD Calderon, Twitter, DeviantArt, Instagram, all under JD Calderon. You can also find me the OswaldChronicles.com, TallTalesOnline.com. You can check out the Kickstarters from all those different places. Indiegogo, the long shots, that's what it's called. That's not, I'm part of the campaign. I'm not running that campaign. It's not mine. That's run by Anthony and Marcus. They're doing a fantastic job. And like I said, those are great books. But if you want to check out the Oswald Chronicles, go to the Oswald, the OswaldChronicles.com, or you just check me out on Facebook. I have all kinds of links on there heading on over to the Kickstarter. So please back it. Feed a starving artist from somewhere else in the world. I'm telling you, I implore you, please feed a starving artist.
You know, I agree, and I'm going to keep saying it. You know, you got to support indie. What that means is you have to back Kickstarters, Indiegogos, because this is how these books get made. And without crowdfunding, a lot of books would not be getting made. And so it's very important whether you're throwing $1, $5, $10, $100, every little bit helps, you know. And I'll speak from my personal experience. $1, and there was a bunch of people on my campaign who threw in $1, and believe me, it helped me on an emotional level, not even a funding level, but it helped me on an emotional level because it helps when somebody's like, "Hey, man, I'll throw you $1. I like what you do. I don't have a lot of money, but hey, I'll throw you $1 because if I interviewed 172 people in 2021.
Wow.
If everybody on my campaign threw me $1, I would be, or not everybody, but let's say that I had another 90 people, I would be at 940 and not 855. So, and it might sound like $90 doesn't mean a difference. In my world, $90 is a huge difference. Especially as a first-time Kickstarter creator. So, and $90 for you, if people might say, "Oh, that's not a big deal," where it's not going to change something, but you know what is? It could mean the difference between you having a safety net or not having a safety net, or helping you out, or it's just going to the next book. And $90, 4, 5, 6 times, you know, it could be a whole nother page of art.
Right.
And that people don't understand.
That's what I was about to say. $90 could be me paying someone to do color a page or illustrate something, or just getting a spatula or whatever, you know. So it just all depends, you know. But yeah, I would definitely say don't, because it's funny. I had a debate with Daphne. She was like, "Should we continue doing this X thing?" Right? And I was like, "Well, listen, we've done this X thing, and it gave us 10% of our revenue, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, but it's not that much. It's only a few $100s." I say, "Yeah, but we've done that for 10 campaigns, right? So it's $200 to $300 for 10 campaigns. It's like $2 to $3 grand." And she was like, "Oh, you're right." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, you know, it's those little things that we don't think about. You're absolutely correct. You know, those single bills.
There are little things on my campaign, and you know what it is? I think I'm going to do it again. I think I'm going to market it better. And I think that my next campaign, which I'm going to probably run in November for my show, with guaranteed guest spots, live advertisements, I got a whole different poll game. And I got a feeling that it's I'm going to do 1,500 as the goal and double my money. And my goal is 60 backers. And it's the first place I'm saying it publicly. I did 38 my first round. And I think I'm going to be able to do 60 my second, which is my goal is both backers and especially if I say what I'm going to do on podcasting, which the first year I'm trying to do 500,000 in 12 months, which I think is doable.
That's
which is kind of crazy in its own right, but I have an idea how to do it. It's just doing it all myself. No.
Listen, man, you gotta go for it.
I guess I'm Luke. No. I know exactly what to do with it, but I digress. So I'll just shout about me really quickly. Obviously, I'm an indie content creator too. My show does sometimes have corporate sponsors, but it also has indie comic creators Also, it has some other people sponsoring it, and also I take donations. So if you like what you see on this show, you enjoy what you see on this show, I have Buy Me a Coffee. If you don't want to be very charitable to me and you're more interested in product, I got a bunch of stuff up on my eBay store, Zenoscope books, a variety of other books. I pick up every once in a while retail comic stuff from people, so you could pick that up. I got some Voodoo Nation done by Luke Stone up in my eBay store, some Stan Knack. So that's something that if you're interested in that and you're looking for some cool variants, that's a really cool thing to look for. I also have metal cards, and that metal card, which I will show in 1 second here, is limited to 121, and I only have 48 of them left. My business partner DJ has 60, and he will be up at Wizard World. And once we sell out of all 121 of them, that's it. That's it. They're not getting reprinted. There might be a new design, but it will not be him as the male version of Laura Croft. So, and DJ is becoming a big star, and I got a feeling that soon enough you're not going to be able to find those either by him or me. So that's a good place to do it. It's $10, guys. So you can buy a metal card off of eBay if you're into that stuff. You can click the link. Also, you can buy my shirt on Redbubble. Buy me a coffee. I appreciate it. I also have a supply code for PCW supplies. Save yourself 10% off on your entire order, because, well, that's what I do. It's Pop Anime Comics. So use that code. And yeah, I appreciate everybody and anybody who uses that. But most importantly, like, share this video, and back some Kickstarters. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
All right. So just remember, everybody, buy more indie comics, especially mine. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew.